Welcome to Motor Talks powered by Motor Gadi. This is Deepak Verma, co-founder of MotorGadi.com. So today we have Dr. Rahul Walawalkar, founder and president of India Energy Storage Alliance, president and MD of Customized Energy Solutions Private Limited, also chairperson of India Electric Mobility Council. So, Dr. Rahul, welcome to Motor Talks. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you, Deepak. I think this is a very special day. I think all of us in another hour are expecting the touchdown of Chandrayaan 3. So, lot of excitement and yeah, happy to talk. As just someone pointed out, the rover is a EV. So again, we have I think a biggest marketing event happening today. Everyone glued to the TV screen. So yeah, perfect timing.
Great. So today we'll be discussing about
Yes.
EVs, EV industries, and its battery infrastructure in India. So today we have our first question with Dr. Rahul. Sir, how do you forecast EV industry in India by next 5 years?
So Indian EV industry has had ups and downs. So the way again right now we think about everything about EV has started just in last few years. But if you think about it, actually EVs had a big push back in early 2000s, where there were a lot of lead acid based two-wheelers were introduced in India. Many companies, there were incentives available from Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. But unfortunately that didn't have a very good success rate. But then starting in 2013, when the Indian Electric Mobility Plan was unveiled by Department of Heavy Industry, again the focus started. In first phase, the focus ending up more on the hybrid, and within that, unfortunately, industry took advantage of the loose norms by introducing soft hybrids rather than real hybrids, which government was expecting. So, in second time, when the FAME was revised, the focus was given more on the pure electric vehicles, and that's where also the electric two-wheeler and three-wheeler ended up getting lot of push and support. And what's exciting is India is the largest market for two-wheelers as well as three-wheelers, and we have a potential where now two-wheeler and three-wheeler are being seen for last mile connectivity globally. So even as we as a company, Customized Energy Solutions, operate internationally for last 25 years. We have a strong presence in US. So we are even seeing a strong interest from US, some of the cities, for looking at two-wheelers or three-wheelers for some of the last mile connectivity. So there it could be actually a very good opportunity for Indian companies who can use the opportunity domestically to be a global brand in the next 5 years.
That's great, sir. That's
Yeah.
great. So my next question is, what is the current status of ACC manufacturing in India, since the government has already approved the PLI scheme back
Sure.
in 2019?
Sure. So again, so PLI scheme didn't get approved in 2019. So PLI scheme started drafting in 2019. The approval came towards end of 2020-21 for various PLI schemes, and the actual bidding and results happened only in 2022. After that, the companies, so there were 4 companies who won the ACC PLI bid, out of which one company, because of some legal reasons, they had to back out, which was a Hyundai Global, because of some internal dispute with the Hyundai on the brand use in India. The other 3 companies, which is Ola, Reliance, and Rajesh Exports, have gone ahead and they have now completed all the legal formalities, as well as what we understand is they have already placed the equipment order or land acquisition, and they are in construction phase for the manufacturing. We should be getting official update within next few weeks from our government on the current status of it, because some of the companies have their first milestones which they have committed to government coming up in the fall quarter. So that's where we will know the exact status if they have run. But we do expect that at least first batch of manufacturing will come online by first quarter of 2024. Because what happens is that many times people get carried away and they think that, oh, last year the bid was announced and winners were announced, but I'm not seeing anything in market. Setting up a gigafactory or even a smaller factory, it takes minimum 18 months to 36 months for construction, equipment ordering, setting up, and then another at least 6 months, if not a year, to stabilize the process, stabilize the supply chain, and reach the commercial production level. So we have to be patient. We are little bit late. We are late by almost 5 years in starting the manufacturing. As IESA, we had given the recommendation back in 2016 to start looking at advanced manufacturing, and we had set original goal of 20 gigawatt hour by 2020 as a goal for India. You can imagine if we had even achieved 10 gigawatt hour by 2020 when COVID hit, what would have been the situation. But anyway, let's not focus on what has not happened. The exciting part is thanks to the ACCPLI and the work which is done by Niti Aayog, Department of Heavy Industries and other industry bodies like IESA, now we have a real good opportunity that India can become a global hub for manufacturing. But we still have a long way to go. We are almost 10 to 15 years behind China. We are 5 years behind Europe. We are 5 years behind US. So we have to do a lot of things right so that we can actually get started. But we are excited, and we are right now expecting that by 2030 India will have more than 100 gigawatt hour of operational advanced chemistry cell manufacturing present.
That's great, sir. That's great. So, like, what are your thoughts on Indian government's FAME 2 scheme? Is it helping in adoption of EVs?
Sure. So definitely FAME 2 has helped. FAME 2 has, I think, again, all the numbers what you are seeing with electric two-wheeler, three-wheelers. First time we have crossed annual sale of more than million vehicles, which is a major milestone, and it's a psychological milestone. And we have sustained that even for the consecutive. So it was not just one-off for 1 year. We are seeing that sustained. Unfortunately, some of the things which have happened with the localization compliance and the fight is not very helpful. Particularly, there is some rumor about some of the companies or associations asking for customers to pay back the subsidy and other things, so which I think customers are not at fault here. So whatever is there is between the companies and this, and that needs to be sorted out. So anyway, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But from again, if you see from the policymaker point, FAME had a very clear focus on faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles in India, and that's why certain rules and incentives were provided. That has generated a very strong positive thing. We have now companies like Ola, TVS, Ather doing a lot of exciting things, and the product quality is quite good. We are seeing a lot of positive confidence from the sector. But then some of these things, learnings, what has happened, we need to hopefully adopt that into FAME 3, make the process more simpler, make it more transparent, and let's not wait for 2 years, 3 years after the event for some of the inspections and other things. So we need to, maybe enforcement mechanism needs to be strengthened. But we are excited that we are getting a strong feedback from various government bodies that government is not looking at FAME 2 as a one-off thing, but there will be some continuation of support for the industry, which I think is very crucial. Yeah, I would say FAME 2 served its purpose. Something which has happened in last few months is unfortunate. We need to learn from it and try to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes for the next phase.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So, as we discussed about the India lagging behind the major powers, right? So, can you think can India become a global leader in battery manufacturing?
So again, as a leader, if you're saying number one, then unfortunately no. We have a long way to go. So it's like if you are in cricket, if you are playing a local tournament and suddenly you expect that you are going to play in the World Cup and win the thing, it's not going to happen, right? You need to get a lot of things there. You need to establish the supply chain. You need to learn the manufacturing process. You need to tweak the manufacturing process. You need to develop the skills of people. You need to have that. You need to produce it not just one-off, but you need to produce it consistently for millions of cells, and you need to do it multiple years ongoing. You need to keep on evolving the technology. You need to R&D. So a lot of things we need to do. But what we are confident is, we know that by 2030 India will be amongst the top 3 markets in the world, only after maybe China and US. India, we hope that will be at least in top 10 in manufacturing. And what we are right now as the IESA we are working on is, we are trying to ensure that we also partner with the right countries in the supply chain side, so that the supply chain for gigafactories which is getting developed in India, that can actually serve as an alternative to China-based supply chain for manufacturing in also Europe and US. If that happens, then in the supply chain side, India can be in the top 3. within next 5 years, 6 years. But for as a overall thing, I think we have the potential, but I would say that to get in top three, we will need at least time till 2035, if not beyond. But we need to continue to work on it, and we have to be more ambitious. Right now, for example, when we started with, we had a vision of only 20 gigawatt hour manufacturing, right?
Right.
Then Niti Aayog upgraded that vision to 50 gigawatt hour, but it was almost 5 years down the line. And now as a IESA, we have set a vision of getting to 150 gigawatt hour by 2030, and 150 gigawatt hour and 500 gigawatt hour manufacturing by 2035. But I would say that is a minimum level we have to strive as a country.
Right.
With 500 gigawatt hour, we are not going to be the number one.
Right.
China by that time would probably have more than 3000 gigawatt hour of manufacturing. US will have maybe 1000, 1200, 1500 gigawatt hour of manufacturing. Europe may have more than 8000 gigawatt hour of manufacturing. So that way again, if we start reaching towards 500, then we'll be in top 5, and then we can look at. But again, it's not only about numbers. We need to focus on quality. We need to focus on innovation. We need to look at what next technology is coming in. Can India take a leadership on that? Can we look at developing leadership on sustainable supply chain? Because we don't need to compete with China just on cost, right? That's something which, when someone is at 100 times or 1000 times bigger, it's just not going to happen. So you need to be smart about it. You need to realize that now we are in a different world as compared to the manufacturing which got set up in China 10 years back, and we don't need to compete on it. If we change the rule of the games, if we start saying that no, we are going to focus on the best of the quality, environmentally sustainable production, then there is no one who is ahead maybe more than 2 or 3 years than us, and it will be possible to catch up on that and drive that. So that's one of the goals what we have set up as IESA, where we are trying to make sure that industry starts looking at this and not worry about just being the cheapest cost, but look at the quality and sustainability of the entire ecosystem.
That's absolutely great to hear, sir.
Yeah.
So we think India's green energy requires a strong electrolytes manufacturing ecosystem. So
Sure.
is India on the right track?
Yeah, so again, it's great. You are getting into now the subcomponent level, and that's where back in 2020 we created India Battery Manufacturing and Supply Chain Council as a part of IESA. And we have been working with now more than 40 companies in the complete ecosystem, and we have companies like Gujarat Fluorochemicals, Neogen Chemicals, and others who are already working on electrolyte manufacturing. And again, they are just trying to time their manufacturing along with the gigafactory setup in India, as well as we are helping them in exploring export opportunities for global facilities. So yes, electrolyte is a critical part, but it's not the only part. So again, for the supply chain, you are looking for cathode materials, you are looking for anode materials, which is primarily graphite, either synthetic or natural, or some kind of a doping of silicon. Within cathode, okay, you can do the cathode active material, but within cathode active material, you may have 3 or 4 different ingredients. So either lithium iron phosphate or lithium nickel manganese cobalt or lithium manganese iron phosphate. So there are multiple chemistries. So depending on the chemistries, you have additional maybe 2 or 3 steps upstream where you need to set up manufacturing and pre-processing of the minerals. So again, that could be separate opportunity for companies. Then electrolyte, additives, separators. So there are a lot of opportunities in the manufacturing supply chain, and we need to look at all of that.
Are these materials easily available in India and at a cheaper price?
Sure. See again, how many things we are using in India right now? The entire IC industry is dependent on petroleum, which is not available abundantly and cheaply in India, right? We do import that, we refine it in India, and we use it for petroleum. We have entire computer, telephone, all the industries where semiconductor and chips are imported. So I feel sometimes this discussion about raw material availability is little bit premature, and it is maybe started off in many cases with the intention of trying to actually slow down this, because there is nothing right now. We are living in a globalized world. There is no need for looking at everything as a just local material and other thing. What we need to focus on is working with right partners, and if there is someone else who has the materials available at cheaper rate, at a better quality, we can partner with them and use it, right? The key part is, if you think about it in a global geopolitical situation, there is no country which is resource rich on just minerals has really become a rich country. So it's not about just using local materials. It is about how do you extract value from the materials. That's where we need to focus on. So I would say that yes, there are raw materials available in India. We, along with WRI, have released already a report in 2020 where we have mapped the complete EV ecosystem and the critical minerals available. We have identified which minerals are available in India, which needs to be imported. So I think it will be combination, and especially Ministry of Mine has done a lot of work in last 2 years where they have removed certain barriers. Like for example, lithium was part of atomic minerals. So it was still few years back. It was actually there was a prohibition on exploration of lithium. So people just used to jump in and say, oh, India doesn't have lithium, so India should just not manufacture lithium-ion batteries. The other thing is, in a lithium-ion battery, the lithium by weight could be less than 5%. So again, it's not like a lead-acid battery where lead is a 80%, 90% of the weight of a lead-acid battery, right? So many times I think people get confused on these issues, but I would say that raw material availability in a long term is a very important issue. But that need not to be seen just from a nationalistic view. That can be seen in terms of a global partnership. We have partnership, very good partnership with Australia. Western Australia has more than 25% of the minerals. For most of the minerals available, they are supporting right now almost more than 50% of the raw materials for global battery manufacturing supply chain. South Africa, Latin American countries, Ministry of Mines had created an entity called Kabil, Khanij Bidesh Nigam, and they have already gone ahead and signed some MOUs with certain international mines for securing the raw materials and supplies. And internationally, individual companies like Apple, Tesla, they go and they secure rights for next 10 years, next 20 years for mines, right? So there is nothing which is stopping Indian conglomerates to go ahead and do that. So I would say that raw material is a critical aspect. We need to be paying attention to it. Recycling will play a key role to it, but it's not something which we need to stop right now for. Let's work with international partners and take it forward.
That's okay. So, as a chairperson of IEMC, what are your recommendations to government for EV adoption in India?
Sure. So again, as a IESA, we are working with both government as well as with industry. So since you asked for government, so on the government side, what we are asking for is continuation of support for the growing industry, because it is still not reached the stage where you can remove all the incentives. We need to maybe taper down the incentives, or you need to tweak it where you can spread it to maybe now more sectors. There are things like, for example, for buses right now, the incentive is only being used only for public sector buses, whereas we feel that there are more than 90% of the buses used in India are in private sector, and majority of those are used for actually public transport. So there is no need for not providing incentive to them, because ultimately, if more people use EVs, you can decarbonize the sector more. That should be the goal, and that's where maybe some of these only STUs versus private, so those things can be removed. Maybe there are other sectors, including like say tractors or material handling equipment, or like mining equipment, where lot of diesel consumption happens, and changing them to electric is actually viable. But just because right now there is no policy to support those sectors, even investors are not actively investing in that sector and looking at driving that. So again, there is a wonderful opportunity for India, because India has a huge market base for these segments. India, if can take lead in this manufacturing in these sectors, then that could also be great. So that's another recommendation we have given to government, that possibly they can expand it. So continue for the existing sectors, but then possibly expand and allow additional sectors to open up for electrification. And then on the other hand side, we are also trying to work on creating awareness with especially corporate and other users who have fleet vehicles, because many times we see people who right now can switch to electric vehicles economically, they are unnecessarily waiting, saying that, oh, I want to wait for a cheaper car 2 years down the line, or I want to wait for a better car, I want to do something else, I want some subsidy. But if right now you have a total cost of ownership lower for an electric vehicle, and you are waiting for 2 years, that means you are just paying more to someone else, which is for petrol companies, or some other thing, right? So it doesn't make any sense. Like for your cell phone, you know next year Apple will come with a better phone, But you are not going to say, oh, I'll go back to a pager or a landline for a year and I'll just wait for that phone, right? You get value from that right now. Same with laptops, same with everything else. So same thing need to happen. And we are right now at hardly 1% or few percent adoption for EVs. And we suddenly start jumping to 100% adoption and start worrying about, oh, is there enough charging for 100% EVs? Where are we going to charge? We need to stop worrying about that. We need to start creating, go from 1 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, and there is enough capacity available for charging, enough vehicles are available, and as that market starts picking up, more investments will flow in manufacturing and market will open up. So we have this initiative called EV Adopter Circle, where we are developing tools, we are educating large fleet vehicle owners to say that, okay, you don't need to change your 100% fleet right now, but can you identify routes where electric vehicles are more profitable, and can we help you make that strategy so that you can start decarbonizing your goal? Because many companies have this goal for 2030. The challenge is, but if you have a goal for 2030, that doesn't mean that you should wait till 2028 and then only do it in last 2 years. You can start doing it, learn from doing it, because it's not only about buying equipment, it's about creating your other support infrastructure, creating charging infrastructure. So all those things I think we need to work on steady, and we are working on that side as well. So not expecting government to do everything, trying to figure out what can be done at manufacturing level, what can be done at the user level, and what can be done by government.
Okay, that's great. So, as World Energy Storage Day is approaching,
Yes.
so what would you like to say to our audience on the
Sure.
same?
So again, thank you very much. So you have done your good homework. So World Energy Storage Day is a concept which started in 2017, started by Global Energy Storage Alliance, where I used to be the vice chair and then later on served as a chair for Global Energy Storage Alliance. The idea was that at that time, so this was Global Energy Storage Alliance was started in 2014, where there were only around 6 national alliances focusing on energy storage around the globe. By 2017-18, it was gone to maybe around 12 or 13 alliances were formed in different countries. But what we realized that the pace at which this was happening was very slow. So we felt that ultimately markets are global. Most of the companies are looking for global opportunities, and we cannot wait for each country to start learning about storage or e-mobility or green hydrogen and then take another 10 year 15 year to come up with their own policy. If the other 100 plus countries can learn from the first 10 countries who are leaders in terms of developing policies, setting up manufacturing, setting up adoption of these technologies, then possibly we can achieve this transition in maybe next 10 or 15 years. Otherwise, most of the time, if you see, anytime when there are technology changes happening, those to reach to the global market, it takes 50 or even 100 years.
Absolutely.
With the current situation, with the global climate change and related issues, we don't have another 100 years to wait for slow adoption for that. And it should not be that this is electric mobility or storage is only luxury for developed countries. So with that goal, World Energy Storage Day was created. The idea was to create a platform to bring together some of the best knowledge from the leading countries and open it up so that anyone who is interested anywhere in the world can learn about it. During COVID, we expanded it from just doing a 2-hour webinar to a 24-hour marathon event, because if you remember, again, it feels like long time back, but suddenly all the international travel was stopped. All the national conferences used to happen where many times leaders will go and learn from each other, that had stopped. So we realized that just doing a 2-hour webinar is not sufficient. So we ended up creating this format for 24-hour marathon event where we divided the world in 4 regions. So APAC, so from China to Australia, New Zealand as a region 1, Indian subcontinent, Russia as a region 2, Europe, Middle East, Africa as region 3, and North and South America. And each region we do 4 panels of 90 minutes each so that you can have in-depth discussion, and there we invite some of the top leaders in topics related to renewables and stationary storage or microgrids, energy access as one panel, manufacturing, supply chain innovation as the second panel, electric mobility as a third panel, and then green hydrogen as a fourth panel, and try to just have an open share of information plus additional some workshops. And last year we had more than 5,000 delegates who attended it from 110 countries. So So it's just still start of the movement. This is something again inspired by the Earth Day movement, if you are familiar, which was started way back in 1972, and we are again trying to learn from that. Earth Day Network is a partner for World Energy Storage Day, and as IESA we work very closely with Earth Day. We have a joint campaign for Earth Day Heroes. So we are again trying to learn from Earth Day network and try to see how we can reduce the time for adoption of these clean energy technologies, so that we can move towards a cleaner world little bit faster than what would happen otherwise.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Absolutely.
So again, the website for that is energystorage.org, and again I would encourage people to log on to the website, and there is a free registration option available, or if there are professionals who want to get complete access to all the recordings so that they can not stay awake for 24 hours but listen to any of these or download presentations, then they can opt for a premium pass. But otherwise this is a completely free event. There is also a global startup competition being held on the day. This will be the third year of the competition, where usually we get more than 100 startups pitching for it. We go through a shortlisting of the process, where we shortlist around 10 startups, and they present it to more than 50 global investors on the day. So it's a 4-hour window during the day where this global startup competition takes place. So again, if there are any startups who are interested, please go in and try to register soon. This week the window is closing for applications, because next 2 weeks we'll be screening the startups and shortlisting 10 who will get opportunity to pitch to 50 investors on 22nd September. Again, there is no fee for the startups for being part of this. Again, I hope you guys will be able to join and get benefit from the network.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So my last question is, I would like to know your views on battery swapping. Is this the right approach for EV adoption in India?
Sure. So again, battery swapping is something which we have studied since almost 2010. So we as a Customized Energy Solutions were one of the companies which worked with a company named Better Place. It was a startup from Israel which had developed this network in Israel, and they were looking at entering into US market. So we ended up studying that for them, and unfortunately concluded that US was that time, especially California market, was not ready for battery swapping. The market rules and regulations were not ready. But in principle, we feel that there are certain segments where battery swapping absolutely makes sense, and it needs to be promoted. So as a IEMC, India Electric Mobility Council, we have already have conducted series of stakeholder consultations with more than 20 stakeholders in the battery swapping ecosystem, and we have identified recommendations where there are barriers such as GST, because the batteries with a fixed electric vehicle has a 5% GST, but if you are buying batteries separately, then it falls at 18% GST. There is additional 18% service, because battery swapping is provided as a service. So those type of barriers are there. So those we are trying to remove it so that there is a level playing field. At the same time, we do feel that sometimes battery swapping also get overhyped. Sometimes people feel that battery swapping is a solution for everything, and everyone is going to buy vehicles without batteries, and they'll buy those vehicles cheaply, and they will just basically do the swapping and they will use it. So there I think it seems sometimes that people lack understanding of the business side, because the swapping has to work for both user as well as the service provider. So basically battery swapping is a way for optimizing the usage of the electric vehicles and increasing the usability of it. So if you are a user who is going to keep your vehicle 20 hours per day parked in a parking lot, then battery swapping is not a solution for you, unless you are in a situation where you do not have a charging point and you are taking it as a removable battery and charging it offline. That could be option, but not as a swapping service user, because swapping provider is investing in the hardware for purchasing the battery on behalf of a user. They are keeping additional batteries in standby so that whenever you go with your battery, you can get a charged battery available. So if you are not going to be swapping at least once, if not twice or thrice per day, then there is no way the battery swapping provider can make a business on it. So that's something which I think people need to understand. Sometimes we see that there is a slight mismatch in the user expectation and the business case, in which case there will be some failures. But otherwise, in principle, we think battery swapping is one of the solutions for meeting e-mobility requirement, and particularly for any customer segment where you do not want to have downtime of vehicles for charging. it will be very viable. There are also technological changes which are happening related to say fast charging or the fast charging infrastructure. So that can be alternate solutions. So again, it's not the only solution. There are multiple solutions, but right now, at least as a IEMC, what we are seeking is to remove barriers so that customers can decide what is the right approach for them, and it should not be distorted because of taxes, duties, or some other barriers.
So I think it was a very great interaction with Dr. Rahul. And if you have any queries related to those topics, so you are free to comment, tell us in the comments. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Deepak. I enjoyed the interaction.